Can you do some in-depth videos about safety advances over time since Chernobyl? Happy to. That was like 50 years ago, the reactors that we're using today that were designed back then. The biggest ones are in the actual materials used and in the design of the reactor. What's nice is that these new reactor designs, a lot of them have very, very passive safety features, like the materials. If you turn off the coolant, you don't get a phase change of the fuel or anything in the reactor. It just gets really, really hot. And the phase change, that's what happened with Fukushima and 3 Mile Island. The fuel melted. So new fuel designs have sufficient heat capacity that when they absorb that heat from the radioactive decay, they won't melt. They just get really, really hot. So that's impressive. There's a lot of things like that. And then there's these new designs with molten salt where you don't have to have high pressure in there for the coolant as it's going through, because the molten salt has this massive amount of heat capacity that even if you turned off the coolant, again, it just gets hot. It doesn't boil. No phase changes. And when you look at the different designs that we had back in the 60s that we built in the 70s, basically our current fleet, the modern designs are just so much better. And it's not just because we have digital. Like, digital is great, obviously. Digital is really important. But then there's a lot of other things, like the digital twins that you can use, and other technology in terms of the detection and non-proliferation and general safety. As an example, when you do a nuclear reactor design, you basically have to assume the worst that could possibly happen. So you have to assume it's a meltdown. And these new designs, like with NuScale, if they had a meltdown, let's say, an act of God, an asteroid comes in and tears everything up, the evacuation zone is within the fence. So the modern fleet that we have now, designed in the 60s and built in the 70s, the evacuation zone, it can go out, 10 miles or so. But these newer ones, the evacuation zone is in the fence. So even if you were living next to it and that happened, you wouldn't have to evacuate. They wouldn't ask you to evacuate. The dose consequence would be too low to trigger that level of consequence. And so that's a really big deal. So I actually do believe that we will eventually have another meltdown, simply because the actual consequence to the public would be negligible, like it was with Fukushima. The only deaths from Fukushima were a panicked evacuation. The dose that they avoided was less than or comparable to what you get for a single CT scan to the chest or hip. That was how bad that release was, a CT scan. And so the newer designs are going to have even lower consequences than that. And so that would be my argument. The newer designs are far more exciting than what we had 50 years ago. So I hope that helps. Everybody enjoyed the video. Y'all have a great day.